Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you, Professor Mukherjee, Rajiv sir, for giving me this opportunity to introduce Professor Subhash Sharma. It's my pleasure to introduce him. Dr. Subhash Sharma is well known in the management education world, both in India as well as abroad. He holds postgraduate diploma in management from IIM Ahmedabad and PhD from University of Southern California, Los Angeles. He is author of well-known books such as Management in New Age, Western Window, Eastern Doors, New Mantras in Corporate Corridors, and New Earth Shastra. His writings have been considered as thought-provoking contribution with quite a few revolutionary point of view. He has made significant contributions to institution building as founding member of Women's Institute for Studies in Development-Oriented Management, commonly known as WISDOM, at Banasthali University, Banasthali, Rajasthan. He is also a founding director of Indian Institute of Plantation Management, Bangalore, and a founding member of Indus Business Academy, Bangalore. He is currently a director at Indus Business Academy, Bangalore. He is also a recipient of Excellence, Achievement, and Leadership Awards. He was awarded title of Academic Rishi by PES University, Bangalore, and Lifetime Achievement Award by Association of Indian Management Scholars International. I welcome you on behalf of Delhi School of Business, and welcome for sparing your time, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gupta. And sir, welcome. Please go ahead and share your screen. Sorry we disrupted you.
Thank you very much. I think I have already shared the screen.
No, sir, you have to do it once more because you stopped sharing.
Okay.
Yes, sir, we can see it now. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I must thank the Delhi School of Business for giving me this opportunity to share some ideas on what we call Indian management, new frontiers. So in order to understand the idea of Indian management, we need to understand the idea of India or the concept of India. So we can look at the idea of India in several ways, like India as a geographical entity, and that we know has been changing since ancient times. Today's India is a much reduced version of the original geographical entity. India as a mythological entity. India as a land of spiritual heritage. So this is all well known. India as a civilizational entity. India as a cultural entity. India as a Rashtra, or in today's language, nation state. India as a business entity, or India Incorporated. India as a market, and India as reservoir of the third largest trained human power or professionals. That is all well known because in many countries, Indian IT engineers are making great contributions. And in US, there are many CEOs of the IT industries who are the Indians. Then India is a confluence of thoughts. So these are the different ideas about India. And now I would like to share another idea of India. If we decode the word India, then IN stands for infinity, D stands for diversity, I in and A absolute. So that is the basic essential idea of India. In nature, we see the infinity, we see the diversity. So that is same thing is reflected in the word India. So this is another way of looking at the word India, which reflects the idea of what we call unity in diversity. Now we also need to look at the idea of India in terms of the Indian history. Generally, the Indian history, we take only a political or economic view. Like, for example, we have 4 periods of Indian history, which we have studied which we study in the textbooks. The Hindu period, the Mughal period, then British period, and now the independent India period. But I would like to present another way of looking at Indian history in terms of the creativity view of Indian history. So period one, we can call it as Vedika period. That is the time when all the Vedas and Upanishads and epics and all that literature was created. Period two, we can call it as Hindika period because during the medieval times, this part of the word was known as Hind. So from the word Hind comes the Hindika. And this period is known for what is known as Bhakti movement. So in the north, Surdas, Tulsidas, Kabir Das, and all those. In the Maharashtra, Sant Gyaneshwar. In south, Karnataka, Baswanda. And so we can see this Bhakti idea was very prominent during that time. Then period three, this part of the word became known as India, and from the word India comes the word Indica. And so this period is known for the freedom struggle. We are all familiar with that. And period four is the 1947 onwards. So India and India Pura. The India Pura means Pura ka Pura India in one place. So if you go to US in any city, whether it is Los Angeles or New York or Portland or any other city, you will find a lot of Indians out there, Indian community very strong. So these are the four periods of Indian history which we can look at it, and the idea of Indian management is closely linked with these four periods. Now, when we have a social discourse of the Indian society, we find this kind of a pattern in Indian society. In this diagram, there is an x-axis and y-axis. On the x-axis is the what we call structuralist approach. You look at the India as a structure, like for example, in organizations, you look at the organization as a structure, as a hierarchy. Similarly, you look at the nation or the country in terms of structures. But on the y-axis is the cultural side, the cultural dimension. So you look at the nation from the perspective of culture. Every nation has its own distinguishing features of culture. And then there are circles. For example, there is a caste circle, there is a region circle, and like that. And then there is a rural-urban circle. And then you have what is known as the right and the left. In the modern society, what we call the capital and the labor. The two sides can be seen in terms of two classes. So this is the way we can look at the social discourse. Another way of looking at India is in terms of India as a matrix society. In this matrix, if you see on x-axis, you have the region, religion, rural and urban. On y-axis, you have the caste, class, community, and categories. So in each cell of this matrix, there is a seesaw. Now the seesaw represents what we call dialectical forces, two opposite forces operating against each other. And then this seesaw, the moment it goes out of control, it becomes a spiral. So in each cell, you can see the seesaws operating and the spirals operating. And then the middle of this matrix is the gender as an axis. So it becomes very difficult to make a prediction what you will see as the headlines in the newspaper tomorrow, because the seesaw can go out of control from any of these cells. So there may be a caste conflict in Bihar, then next day you will find a class conflict in some other part in Kerala or in West Bengal. Then you can find religious conflict in Tamil Nadu, like that. So therefore, the Indian society is very unpredictable, and therefore the role of leadership is to balance these dialectical chakras or dialectical spirals to ensure harmony in this society. Now, when another way of looking at Indian history is in terms of the dignity struggle. Indian history is full of the story of dignity struggle. whether it was Rana Pratap or Shivaji or Rani of Jhansi, and not so much of class struggle. That's where the Marxist intellectuals failed in analyzing the Indian society, because they looked at the Indian society only from class struggle perspective and not from the dignity struggle perspective. Another phenomena which has happened in India is what we call the mind colonization. So the mind colonization, what is the meaning of mind colonization? That means your mind is colonized in terms of master-servant relationship. Unless the master says, okay, you do not have the confidence in your own ideas. So this is what happened as a result of the colonization of the Indian society. Then comes the second phase, which we call mind liberation. So in the mind liberation, there is an intellectual revolt by the servant, and that shakes the master. So this is what happened during freedom struggle. So whether writings of Gandhi or Tagore or Aurobindo or Tilak and all others contributed to create alternative ideas. Then comes the phase three, that is mind extension. So this is the relationship becomes master-master. So you are master, we are master, so let us exchange the idea. Today, India is in that third stage, mind extension stage. Because the Indian ideas, for example, yoga, meditation, and spirituality have found the global acceptance at the world level. Now, what happens during these three phases? During mind colonization, there is you are dependent for your intellectual resources only on the outside world. So the source of influence, inspiration is external. During mind liberation, the, the source of inspiration is internal. If you see the writings of Swami Vivekananda, Gandhi, Aurobindo, and others, they are all drawn from the indigenous ideas. And then during mind extension, the relationship is interactive and integrative and synthesis oriented. So the source of inspiration are both internal and external. So today we have both the sources of inspiration. Now there are basically 5 principles of what we can call the Indian ethos. In this, the first is the unity in diversity idea. Second is integrative synthesis. So over all the ages, there is an integration of the ideas coming from outside world, and they are synthesized into new form. For example, the Sufism developed as a result of an integrative synthesis. There is conferencism. Conference is Sangam. So Sangam is the merging of certain ideas together. So that has been happening over the period of time. Then word as a family. This is what we call Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So word is considered as a family, and human beings as spiritual beings. So that is another dimension of the Indian ethos. So Swami Vivekananda said that every person has divinity inside him or her, and the goal is to manifest that divinity. So these 5 ideas constitute what we can call Indian ethos or the Indianity. Now we come to the idea of Indian management. Now all these ideas contribute to the idea of Indian management. So here are 3 paradigms of management: the American, Japanese, and Indian management. American management is what we can call cola oriented. Cola is derived from the word Coca-Cola, C-O-L-A. We can make it into K-O-L-A. Now, this approach to management is an aggressive approach. There may not be drinking water in Indian villages, but Coca-Cola is there. Why? Because of aggressive marketing and a very good distribution network. Japanese management is rooted in the idea of Kaizen. Kaizen means continuous improvement. So during World War II, Japan was practically destroyed, and therefore they had to rebuild their nation. and therefore they use the idea of continuous improvement. And Indian management is rooted in the idea of knowledge, because Indians are known for what is known as knowledge-seeking ethos. As a result of that, we have so many trained IT professionals all over the world. So this is what we call as a KQ formula for integration of the three paradigms. So today you need all the three paradigms, the Kola, Kaizen, and knowledge, in order to gain competitive advantage, not only for the nation, but also for the organizations, but also for the self. So you need to learn from Americans a little bit of aggressiveness. You need to learn from Japanese the idea of Kaizen, and from your own knowledge base, you need to learn more about knowledge. So when you combine all the three, you are able to gain a competitive advantage in the market. Now, let's look at the idea of origin and development of Indian management. So we can identify four phases. Phase one, adopting scientific approach to management. This happened in 1960s when the IIMs were established. IIM Ahmedabad, IIM Calcutta, and later on IIM Bangalore, and later IIM Lucknow, and today there are, I think, more than 20 IIMs. Phase two, somewhere around 1980, some intellectuals in the country started thinking in terms of the indigenous management thinking. And then around 2000, it created Indian ideas in management. So there is now today a lot of knowledge which has been created in the field of Indian management. And there are also some books in this field. And now we are moving towards the phase four, where it is the globalization of the Indian thought and globalization of Indian management, so that the idea of Indian management is accepted at the world level, just as American management and Japanese management. There are 5 thought streams emerging from this 4-phase journey. First is integrative indigenization, leading to new concepts, development in management and leadership. Now, the idea of integrative indigenization was given by Professor J.B.P. Sinha. So here you integrate an idea with the existing ideas, and therefore we are able to indigenize the idea. Second is grounded praxis approach to knowledge creation. Now, you will learn a lot of American management in the textbooks, but when you go to the field, you find the realities out there very different. And therefore, you'll try to learn from the ground reality and create your own perspectives and ideas. So that is what is grounded praxis approach. And Indian managers always use the grounded praxis, because during MBA, they study only American management or at best some Japanese management. But the ground, when they start practicing it, they find the reality to be very different. So they develop their own perspective. Then the third stream is the Indian ethos, Indian culture, and management linkage. And then fourth is conceptualization from the ground. For example, Amul, the development of Amul provides a very interesting case study of conceptualization from the ground. And the fifth is integration and the synthesis of Western and Eastern ideas of management and leadership. So this is what I call the Western windows and Eastern doors approach. That is also the title of my first book, published in 1996. The purpose of the windows is to look outside. So Western windows means by looking outside for the reality and then conceptualizing. Eastern doors is purpose of the doors is to come inside, experience, and then go outside and look at the reality. So that is how the idea of yoga, meditation, and spirituality emerged from the East. And now in the 21st century, there is a need to combine the two ideas. So that is the future of Indian management, or the new frontier of Indian management. Now, what are the intellectual resources for Indian management? So Indian spiritual movements like Ramakrishna Mission, Brahma Kumaris, Chinmaya Mission, Art of Living, Baba Ramdev. So these are all world known and globally known. And these are as powerful as the, the corporates of the US. So like you have the Microsoft, Facebook and all that. Similarly, we have our own, spiritual movements in terms of these institutions and organizations. Then Indian freedom struggle, Gandhi, Tagore, Aurobindo and all that. Indian constitution also is a very important intellectual resource for Indian management because it emphasizes democracy, freedom, social justice. Then Indian experiences of corporate development and institution building. So we have built IITs, IIMs, and many other B schools, and there are a lot of corporates, Infosys, Wipro, and all that. So these are all well known, and we have documented also these experiences. So that is also a basis for intellectual resource. And the fifth stream is the Indian ethos and the Indianism. So now here are some management and leadership lessons from the national and cultural symbols from India. So what is the management lesson from Indian flag? Is there any management lesson from Indian flag? Yes. The green represents the money, white represents the knowledge, and saffron represents the power, spiritual power, military power, and power in general. So when these three factors of creation are combined together, that means the money, knowledge, and power, then you can become the superpower. When we look at the United States, we find these factors are very strong there, and they are integrated very well. For example, the economy is very strong. The knowledge, that means the educational system, is very strong. That's why many Indians every year go there for higher studies. And the saffron, the military power, is also very strong. So all the three are very important. Another national symbol is in terms of the four lions. These four lions give us the idea of four forces, and that is the force of market, force of the state, force of people, and force of self, the hidden lion. So the right side lion is the force of market, left side is the force of state. Lion looking at front is the force of people, and hidden lion is the force of self. So, for example, in Delhi, if you go to Connaught Place, you see the force of market. And then you walk and go to Parliament, you see the force of the government or the state. And then you go to Jantar Mantar and some people are agitating there, you see the force of people. And then you go to 100 miles and to Haridwar, you see the force of self. So all the four forces are operating together. When they are in harmony, there will be harmony in the society. When they are not in harmony, there will be disturbance and violence in society. Then there is a chakra in the flag. The chakra has different spokes. These different spokes are representing the dialectical positions. That means the opposite positions. So as a manager, you have to look at the various dialectical chakras or various opposite positions, and this is the center of synthesis. Then the management lesson from Lotus. Lotus, as we all know, is a symbol of enlightenment. So therefore, the manager has to be an enlightened individual and enlightened leader. Then from the lamp, Diya. So the lamp is a symbol of light. And again, light is also a symbol of enlightenment. And then Samudra Manthan represents the two opposite forces and the dynamics between the two opposite forces. And there is a lot of poison coming out, but ultimately the nectar is also coming out. So as a leader, we have to deal with a lot of negative energy or negativity. And then, but at the same time, we have to keep our hope in terms of for positive energy. And therefore, the role of the manager is to deal with the negative energy, minimize the effect of the negative energy, and create the positive energy. Then the management lessons from the festivals. This is what I call the Indian HRD. HRD here stands for Holi, Rakhi, and Diwali. So Holi is a festival of colors. So different colors represent the different perspectives on it and leading to holistic approach. Rakhi is representing the relationship. So if your relationship with stakeholders is positive, then that will create the positive energy. And Diwali is the symbol for wealth, wealth with ethics. So that is the idea of the Indian management, which is captured by the word Shubh. So the Shubh means the profit with ethics. Now, here is the summary. But now, what are the three key aspects of three paradigms? The American management, Japanese management, and Indian management. So they all have a vision of life. The vision of life for American management is the struggle to survive. So survival is the main idea, and that's how the idea of the survival of the fittest came. And then Japanese struggle for betterment, and Indian is struggle for values. Who are the influencing thinkers? For American management, Darwin, Maslow, and others. For Japanese management, Zen thinkers. For Indian management, Vedantic thinkers. Now, what are the driving ethos or driving idea? So American management, MBO, we are all familiar. Japanese management is MBHO, management by higher objectives. Japanese management is rooted in the idea of what we call superordinate goals. So superordinate goals represent the higher objective. And the Indian management is rooted in the idea of hope. Hope means higher order purpose of existence. Is there any higher order purpose of existence? This is the idea which our ancient rishis have been asking, and even today the modern thinkers also ask, what is the higher order purpose of idea? Then what are the dominant ethos? American management, spirit to dominate. That's what I said, the Kola approach. The Japanese management, spirit to betterment. And the Indian management is knowledge seeking ethos. So that is what I said, Kola, Kaizen, and knowledge. Now, what are the foundational theories? American management is theory X, theory Y. You are going to study that in more detail in your course on organization behavior and HRD. Japanese is theory Z, which is the team building, and Indian is theory K. K is for Kutumb. So organization is a Kutumb or a family, and therefore you use a combination of X, Y, and Z. The leadership in American management is mostly head oriented. That means the rationality is given more importance. In the Japanese management, it is heart oriented, so the creativity is given importance. In the Indian management, it is head plus heart plus the consciousness. So it's a combination of rationality, creativity, and spirituality. So these are the some of the differentiating factors between the three management paradigms. Now, is there an Indian model for corporate development? So here is what we call Indian model for corporate development. While American model for corporate development starts with profit, the Indian model for corporate development starts with human welfare, or what is known as Loka Sangra. Then that is supported by the right side, the idea of Subla and work as worship, And on the left side, the idea of Nishkam Karma, that means unattached action, and the idea of self-development. And the base of all this is the organization as a family, or what we call theory K or theory Kutum. And in the center is the extreme, avoidance of extreme. So that is what is also known as the Buddha's middle path. So Indian managers usually will avoid the extremes. Now, there are basically 5 principles of leadership. First is what we call the put the right effort. Second is learn from the experts and excellent ones. Third is avoid the extreme. And fourth is evaluate according to results. And the fifth is follow the path of right conduct. Now this we have derived these 5 principles from what is known as Vashitas or the Sanskrit slokas. And then when we combine them with what we call integral model of 4 visions, there are 4 visions. One is the vision of life, and we have seen the American vision of life and the Japanese vision of life and Indian vision of life. There are certain fundamental differences. Then these are combined with the vision of humanity and vision of society and the vision of profit. So the vision of profit is reflected in the profit and surplus generated. Vision of society, now it is being reflected in terms of CSR. Vision of humanity is now being reflected in terms of the sustainability idea. So all this combined together lead us to the Indian model of management and leadership, which starts with the holistic vision of life, which is happiness for all. And then the 5 principles: put the right effort, learn from expert, avoid the extremes, and evaluate according to result and follow the path. And then there are certain facilitating factors. So these facilitating factors like be truthful and related factors, follow the righteous path, personal qualities and all that. So now, are there any Indian models of leadership? Yes, over a period of time, many models have been developed and which are now part of the received knowledge in this field. The first model is Vijikshu model. Vijikshu means Vijay ka Ikshuk. That means desirous of victory, and that is the Kautilyan Arthashastra articulated very well there. Now, I think this is the first lesson which all the MBA students or PGDM students should learn, that they must cultivate a desire for victory. Second is nurture and task leadership, given by Professor J.B. Piscina, that ideal leader is both nurturing and task-oriented. So on x-axis, you are task-oriented, but y-axis, you are nurturing like a parent. Third model is Okta-Pace model. This is given by Professor Uday Parikh and talks about leadership values in terms of openness, collaboration, trust, authenticity, proactivity, autonomy, confrontation, and experimentation. Then Karta model, this was given by Singh and Bhandarkar, and this is the leadership style based on the metaphor of Karta, which is the head of the joint family. Fourth is the 4 steps model of leadership, that is the Hope model. At level 1, you are a robot. At level 2, you are a manager who is able to take decisions. At level 3, you are a leader. And at level 4, you are an enlightened leader. That means driven by higher order purpose of existence. And then there is what we call Yin Trinity model. So leadership combines qualities of Yin Trinity, that means Lakshmi, Saraswati, and Durga. The money and knowledge and the power are combined together in the leadership style. And the theory K, I already mentioned about it, that leaders aims to creating harmony in relationships and harmony at workplace through a mix of theory X, which is authoritarian, theory Y, which is democratic, and theory Z, which is the team building in his or her leadership style. Now, all these things are being reflected in a new vision for management and leadership. This new vision can be seen in terms of the logo of various IIMs. So IIM Ahmedabad, which was established in 1961, if you see their logo, you will see Vidya Vinyoga Vikasa, progress through the application of knowledge. Application of knowledge is the key idea there. And that is why IIM Ahmedabad believes in the case method of teaching, because case method of teaching brings the application of knowledge in the classroom context. IIM Bangalore logo is talks about Tejasvina De Mastu. Let our master and the taught student learning be radiant. Then IIM Lucknow talks about Suprabandha Rashtra Samriddhi, nation's progress through good management. IIM Indore Siddhi Moolam Prabandhanam, achievement is rooted in management. IIM Kozhikode Yoga Karmeshu Kausalam, diligence leads to excellence. IIM Rohtak Jnano Guno Prabandham, management through knowledge and values. IIM Ranchi Bahumukhi Vikasan Gantavya, working to bring change towards success, not only by one's self, but also for the community. So what we see in these different logos and the messages is a new vision of management and leadership. And that is the idea of the application of knowledge, idea of the co-learning, idea of the management as linked with the nation's development and nation's progress, and then idea of the human values and application of knowledge and multidimensional development. So this is the new vision for management and leadership, and that is the foundation of the Indian management. And I think these ideas are universal ideas and can be taught at the global level. So all these ideas are available in my recently published book under the title Indian Management. I think with this I conclude. And once again, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share some of the ideas. I hope the students have got a good perspective on the idea of Indian management. And when they study the textbooks, mostly written on the basis of the American management, they will be aware, they will be in a position to make comparison and therefore practice the grounded praxis approach to management. So thank you very much. And once again, welcome. Over to you.
Ma'am, there, please.
Yes, I am, sir. Sir, if you please stop sharing, then we can ask for questions. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay, we are open to questions. That was a real new angle that we saw, and it should keep our thinking, take our thinking in a different line, because you have done so much of synthesization of Indian thoughts. I will not speak further, Ram sir will, but before that we must have some questions. Students must be having some things to ask you, or even our faculty members. So please go ahead. We have time. Anybody, any issues? Yes, Ratan sir, please go ahead.
So, Subhash, you're an ocean of really unfathomable knowledge indeed. We understand that. You have done so much work in Indian philosophy and ethos. Now the question, how really to translate that into real, teaching, which can be scalable and also useful for the manager. Some tips, I'm sure you must have thought about those things, because I think we need really to really teach the students those issues. So how to do that, Professor?
Now, AICT has already introduced a course for the MBA students all over the country. So this is how the idea will first thing is the idea should go to the students. And then second is the implementation of the idea. Now, for example, we introduced this idea in 1996 at Wisdom, Banastali University. So students over 25 years have grasped these ideas, and when they go to the corporate world, they are able to make certain changes and implement these ideas. And the corporates are very happy with them because they are able to see some new perspective and new innovative thinking. So and similarly at the IBA, where I'm currently working, we have a course under the title Management Perspectives. So we give all the three perspectives, the American, Japanese, and the Indian. And students are able to make a comparative analysis of that. So this is how we need to implement. Of course, we also need some faculty development programs for the faculty members to get immersed into it. So maybe Delhi School of Business can take this initiative and launch a program on faculty development rooted in these ideas of Indian management. So that is how we can facilitate the process. See, it takes time for any new idea to take. Japanese management idea started in 1940s, but only in 1980s the world came to know about the idea of Japanese management. So similarly, Indian management idea started in almost 1980, and it is almost 40 years. And now people are recognizing the potential of Indian management. And that is also because of the success of the Indian society and also the Indian engineers and Indian doctors and Indian MBAs who are there all over the world.
Do you feel, Professor? Hello. Yeah, teaching is one part. Are there any case studies which in India people are using as a manager about in these very successful?
That is where we need to tap.
Okay.
That's a very potential areas for tapping. So we need to write the case studies on Indian. Of course, some case studies are there. For example, Amul case study is there. Infosys Wipro case studies are there. India's election, elections are held every 4 or 5 years. So those are available in terms of case studies. But we need to write more about it.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sir, I think Dr. Sanjay Kumar wanted to ask some question. If I could see his hands raised. But before I invite him, I just, sir, as I was listening to, this is Rajiv, sir. Yes, sir. So basically, as the thought cross in mind is that to request you that if we can organize, would be like you mentioned about DSB, we would very keen to organize a conference on Indian management. And it is a dream, personal dream for me to organize such a conference, maybe a 2-day international conference. So we will talk to you about this idea separately, but I just wanted to propose it before the faculty colleagues and the students.
I think that's a very good idea. So whatever help you want from my side, I will always be available.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So you have always been positive and very helpful, supportive. And as for implementation and rolling out, Ratan sir, I don't know if you ever had opportunity to visit IBA, but coincidentally, it so happened that one has been meeting Sharma sir in the IIMs and other conferences, but as a NBA committee, it so happened coincidentally that I was to visit as the chair of the expert team, and the three of us visited. And if you walk through the campus, the architecture, there is a tower, and then there are many other teaching facilities which have been created around the Indian philosophy. And the thoughts that Professor Sharma has ideated, he has designed, and it is so beautifully explained. So, in fact, what he has been professing through his books and through his videos and lectures is just not there. It is getting implemented, at least I could see in IBA, very beautifully. And sir took us around the campus and explained personally to the entire team. So you remember, sir, I think this is not
Yes,
very
sir.
old.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So compliments to you. Over to you, Dr. Sanjay, sir. I believe you have a question.
Oh, Dr. Sharma, it was a pleasure to listen to you. I come from a background where I have spent 30 years working for half of that time in multinationals, for Seco International and Hindustan Tiwa, 15 years and 3 years. And other half of that time in Indian business houses, the Thapa Group and then Lakshmi Mittal Group. And I retired as a managing director in the Mittal Group in order to come to academic world. I did my PhD from Delhi University, and now I have joined the academic world. And two horrors that I want to share with you, which I am glad that you are already recognized and have addressed. One was teaching. We still continue to teach. I did my MBA from IIM Calcutta in 1975-77. At that time, of course, all the textbooks were American textbooks. And I was shocked to see that even now we are still teaching American textbooks with Indian authors, but those Indian authors are only Indianizing the American concepts, number one. Number two, even with so much of case data, and I can tell you I have shared a lot of my experiences with my other colleagues from Hindustan Lever who became CEOs of many, many companies in India while I became a CEO abroad. And all of us went through the process that you said, that ground reality and practice of the ground reality. We have so much of case data, but not captured in case stories that could be written for Harvard Business School, etc. I think academicians have to spend time to write down those case studies. And I'm glad that it is being recognized that we need to capture them. But what I still feel what we miss is an understanding from a theoretical concept which will give us more confidence in projecting our Indian management. I do believe I have many, many lifetime examples of how we try to fit a square in a round hole. I think even we are teaching our students, trying to fit them into round holes when they are all squares. They have an Indian ethos, which you very rightly captured, but we are trying to build them into concepts which are Western concepts. It's a very, very dysfunctional approach to education as far as I can see it. But I have constrained, I have followed the textbooks which are available. So in my classes, I do give real life examples to make the difference. But still, we need more textbooks and cases, as Professor Ratan Sharma said, to make our Indian management more widely available and scalable. Thank you, sir.
Yes, definitely. I entirely agree with you. We need to collect all these experiences together and write more case studies so that the teaching material is available for the professors to transmit these ideas into the classroom.
I did notice that you mentioned that data is available of the institution building in IIMs and IITs.
Yeah.
I studied in IIT Kharagpur and IIT Bombay also.
Okay, okay.
So I have gone through many institutions, but you didn't mention about the data that is available from so many corporate reminiscence. Like Gopal Krishnan has written a lot of books.
Correct,
But when I read them with an academician perspective, I find they are lacking.
No, that is where we need to bring in the academic perspective.
Exactly.
And into the writings of the professionals.
Yes, I wish someone could sit with Gopal and capture his thoughts in a more academic rigor.
Sir, I have a question. If I may, yeah, Madhuranti, just after this, if you can come in, it's a related this thing. So, you talked about the colonial to the liberation stage, and so as of now, in fact, the perception, which is at least the perception which is being built in the country, where probably one school of thought or one ideology is being perceived or seen as being overpowering, otherwise where the different varied ideologies had a space for themselves. So, and especially when it also concerns with the educational institutions, higher educational institutions, the leadership, etc., the value system which is being talked about, even in the literature, in the resources, a particular ideology is seemed to be being pushed, or it is being little, I would say, overpowering. So do you see some kind of a shift in that, if you were to relate with the liberation stage, or is it that some kind of a colonial format within the country is emerging? How would you like to comment on that, sir?
No, I think we need to, I go back to the chakra model. So we need to expose our students to different perspectives and different ideologies and develop in them a mindset of synthesis. So they need to develop the idea of synthesis, and that is how we can overcome the colonization of the mind and lead to liberation and the extension of the mind.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Madhuranti, please go ahead.
Good morning, sir. So, like after listening to all this, the leadership process that you have said regarding that we need to have a thought process like Lakshmi, Saraswati, and Durga. Initially, I was going through the Bhagavad Gita that it was teaching regarding the Indian management system. But today, when I have heard it is telling that it is also important for us to combine all these things with the Western cultures and all this. So, sir, if I ask you that how much will you support that? Yes, Bhagavad Gita also gives us proper Indian management theories. Like we have always seen that Lord Krishna is considered to be the most important regarding management things, especially for leadership. Like if I ask you how, means how you will be supporting this?
No, you are very right. A lot of leadership lessons are there from the Gita. And so our managers should learn those lessons in addition to the Western models of leadership. So one of the key ideas in the Gita is what we call the Lokasangra, or the human welfare. And that is the model which I presented. And the second idea is the Nishkam Karma, the unattached action. So that these are the two ideas which the leaders of the modern world need very badly. So there are a lot of lessons. You can read my article on ResearchGate under the title Corporate Gita. There is a full article which was published by Journal of Human Values, IIM Calcutta, around 20 years back. And it is one of the most cited article in the national and international journals. So you may like to go through that, and okay, that will supplement your thinking.
Thank you, sir. I'll surely go through.
Okay.
Right. Okay, so if we don't have any further questions, since we have parents waiting, Ram sir, would you please do the honors and give the vote of thanks?
Yeah. Thanks, ma'am. And so thank you very much, sir. It was a very enlightening session. I mean, for me personally, it was an eye-opening session because I figured out, I understood how little I know about the rich heritage of my own culture, and how important it is to incorporate some of these ideas into our day-to-day modern life. And so I'll just briefly summarize. Sir, touched on so many issues. It's difficult to touch on everything in a little bit of little time we have left. But he was essentially talking about we'll start with the because so sir talked about the first of all, the interesting thing I found with the Indian man, the idea of India, where IN stands for infinity, that D stands for diversity, and A stands for absolute. Then he gave us an interesting perspective on history, which is based on the creativity based approach perspective on history with Vedika, Hindika, Indica, and now the modern day of India Pura. And that was followed by a discussion of, again, very innovative ways of looking at social discourse, the Cartesian view of social discourse, again, with an additional axis between capital and labor on the left and right, and then the culturalist versus the structuralist being the X and Y axis. Then he also gave us the matrix view of social discourse, where he was interested, transposing the categories, the caste, class, community versus the regional forces, and the dynamic balance, which he also talked about even in the chakra, the dialectical tension between the opposites. And then he also brought in an interesting, probably a flaw in the Marxian analysis of history, missing out the Indian angle, which is Marx only talked about the class struggle, but in India we've also had a dignity struggle, so referring to our historical figures like Rana Pratap, etc. So that element. And then he also talked about some, again, all these were very much new to me: mind colonization versus mind liberation versus mind extension, where your source of inspiration, which is external or internal. And then, of course, our inspirational figures like Swami Vivekananda, who are examples of how they took, internal inspiration, used internal sources of inspiration. Then he also talked about 5 foundational concepts, which is unity in diversity, integrative synthesis, the world as a family, the humans as spiritual beings, and Confucianism. And then he also brought in all the elements several times, the elements of the US and Japanese management styles, how they fit into, how we can combine those with the Indian approach, which is Pola, Kaizen, and knowledge, and the K3 formula. And so various, then he went into all the history, the detail, the history of Indian management, the development of Indian management thought, the 4 phases of the scientific approach, then over through the different IMs from the 1980s, 2000s, and then eventually to the modern day of modern approach, where we are trying to combine East and West. And then he also looked at the intellectual resources of Indian management, the various, the spiritual movement, freedom struggle, constitution, the Indian experience of corporate development, the Indian ethos, etc. And then management and leadership lessons from the flag. This was also very interesting for me, how we can draw lessons from things which we normally don't spend too much time thinking about: the flag, the chakra, the 4 lions, the lotus, the different festivals. And then all the 3 aspects of the 3 and key aspects, coming back again to the 3 aspects of the different types of management styles. The US is focused on the struggle to survive, the Japanese on struggle to improve, and in India we have the struggle for values. And then we have the different, again, a different perspective on theory X, theory Y, and theory Z, which we were aware of. But then Sir has come up with a new concept of theory K, which is the Indian style, which is based on the idea of K for Kutum. So, and then India, again, Indian management focuses on consciousness, Japanese management on heart, and the US management style on head. So in this way, he covered many aspects. We can all read his book to get more insights on that. And then, of course, he finished off with the ideas of the what we can draw even from the logos of the different Indian management institutes, and also the Indian models of leadership. So Sir himself has contributed some towards the end, the last 2, the Yen Trinity and the theory K. And then, of course, historically, Kautilya's theories, and the nurture and task leadership model, and the octapace model, and the Karta model. So it was a very inspirational, and in fact, Sir has done some kind of a churning or Samudra Manthan in our own minds how we can think about things we already know of, but we don't make much use of, the historical legacy that we have. And so thank you very much, sir, for your sparing of the time to enlighten the teachers. Also not just the student, but also the teachers. And we look forward to having you once again on our campus. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. And Neeraj ji, can you please put up the memento, sir? It's a small token of our appreciation for you doing so much and sparing your time and giving us so much good information and insights. There it is, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Professor Subhash. This is wonderful. Ratan Sharma this side.
Yeah, thank you very much. Nice meeting you.
All right.
Yeah, I thought I know you, but I don't know whether you remember me or not.
Yes, yes. We traveled together to Omkareshwar.
Okay,
Yeah,
Neeraj, over to you. I think parents are waiting, so please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. I will.
Thank you,
I
sir.
will leave.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye,
Thank
sir.
you.